All right, welcome to the Young Turks coverage of the Republican National Convention. Cenk, Uygur, Jayar Jackson with you guys. Action Jackson. Now they're using that for Lamar Jackson, Jayar. I don't know. I know you don't get to trademark it since it was already a movie, but
it's one of those terms that it gets hit for every person who's ever been named Jackson in their life. You also got, is Bo your uncle? That's what else you got around 1993. So it's a constant thing. And in the 80s, you get, you mean like Michael? And you're like, yeah, that very uncommon name Jackson. So anyways, yes, thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, I can't tell you the number of times people have said to me, Action Jankson. All right, anyways.
You gotta get it trending.
Yeah, well, I do, my name does trend, and when it does, watch out. Okay. So speakers tonight, Donald Trump Jr., he should be up first. The one and only, as Donald Trump would say, my African American, Senator Tim Scott, the only African American that's Republican in Congress. Steve Scalise, he's the Republican whip, one of the leaders of the Republicans. He's the guy who got shot and then said, oh my God, bullets are so wonderful and yummy for breakfast. NRA kicks ass, they still are funding me. Okay, so basically what Scalise said. Matt Gaetz, Jim Jordan, this is a murderer's row of terrible people. Nikki Haley, Ronna McDaniel, she's the RNC chair. And then Kimberly Guilfoyle, because she's the girlfriend of someone, okay. Charlie Kirk, I assume he's going to speak like a capitalist every day, Cenk. And obviously, Mark and Patricia McCloskey. And that, of course, is a St. Louis couple that held a gun to black protesters who weren't doing anything wrong. They were arrested for that and now, of course, celebrated in Republican circles.
So to be fair to your criticism of the lineup, Cenk, at least at the DNC, Hunter Biden spoke, his wife or girlfriend spoke, some Black Lives Matter protesters that were walking through that neighborhood in St. Louis spoke. All the people that are on the opposite sides of the same thing that happens with the Republican convention apparently spoke at the Democratic convention as well, because that makes for a good, upbeat, rousing convention that will convince enough American people to get on your side, vote for your candidate because it'll do something more for themselves in their lives.
Okay, so Jayar, obviously none of those people spoke. To be fair, they smeared Hunter Biden, who might have deserved it, so thoroughly that they weren't going to have Hunter Biden speak. Okay, but normally he probably would have, to be honest. I mean, Chelsea Clinton spoke at the Clinton DNC in 2016, but yes, the Republicans are much more of a clown show. We were talking about that before we got on air, and so the clown car rolls in to Zoom, presumably at this point, and then they're going to open the car. You're going to be shocked at the number of clowns that they fit in there. My main question here, as we're about to get started, Jayar, is well, of course, the real question is how effective will it be, and will it be more effective or less effective than the DNC? But of course, the question we're all like kind of curious about is how fun will it be? How entertaining? Because Democrat one, I thought was really pretty damn boring.
It always is.
Crazy. Nobody's gonna crap their pants, right? But in the Republican convention, anything could happen.
And it most likely will. So as you were talking about, actually I'm a little sad. I mentioned it just before we jumped on. I'm a little sad that, because of the pandemic, because of COVID and the distancing and the concerns about crowds, there's no normal conventions with big crowds and stages and speeches. But I love these things. Like it's a well-known fact. If you've ever asked me anything about any conventions, I love both conventions. And I particularly love the RNC. It's just more fun. I don't know. And I've compared it to when I was an athlete, and I like road games that just are always more fun. I liked being on the road. I liked it when you're at least participating in something, everybody wasn't just on your side just because. So it's just fun sometimes to, even if you're not having discussions and disagreements and arguments, it's just fun to see the perspective up close and in person to really see, are they really real? Is this just what they do when they're on camera? Or what about in real life exchanges with other folks? How are they? And it's fascinating when you find out.
Yeah, first of all, I like that they got Karl Rove to pretend to be a priest for the beginning of this RNC. It's a nice touch. Second of all, it's of course in reality Cardinal Timothy Dolan from New York, but I don't know if he's the one cardinal they found that is not involved in a scandal, but I'm not positive. And would the Republicans really care? No. So, and if they do get involved in a sex scandal, apparently the new excuse is, yes, but my wife was sleeping with the pool boy. I'm not laughing. I'm just saying, Giancarlo. That's a story we found out about today with Jerry Falwell Jr. No wonder he hates immigrants.
Let's keep it real. Even if you were able to be on the main show today, you still wouldn't have been able to talk about it because we know that not would have been discussed.
Yeah. Look, marriage is hard, and so our hearts go out to the Falwells, kind of. But the fact that she slept with an immigrant, that's rich. Okay. All right. It's such a Republican convention already. They start with an old cardinal and then go to an old veteran. And then lots and lots of flags. America, America, America. All right, here we go. Let's listen.
I run the largest pro-American student organization in the country, Turning Point USA, fighting for the future of our republic. Speaking to you in my personal capacity tonight as a 26-year-old, I see the angst of young people as well as the challenges facing new parents. I am here tonight to tell you, to warn you, that this election is a decision between preserving America as we know it and eliminating everything that we love. For decades, ruling class leaders in both parties sold out our future to China, to faceless corporations, and to self-serving lobbyists. They did it to preserve their own power and enrich themselves, all while rigging the system to hold down the good, decent middle-class patriots striving to build a family and pursue a decent life. All of this changed dramatically in 2015 when a billionaire named Donald Trump put his own life of luxury on the line. From that moment he came down that famous escalator, he started a movement to reclaim our government from the rotten cartel of insiders that have been destroying our country. We may not have realized it at the time, but Trump is the bodyguard of Western civilization. Trump was elected to protect our families from the vengeful mob that seeks to destroy our way of life, our neighborhoods, schools, churches, and values. President Trump was elected to defend the American way of life. The American way of life means you follow the law, you work hard, you honor God, you raise your kids with strong values, and you work to create a civil society. The American way of life means you speak your mind without retribution, without being kicked off social media by a self-righteous censor in Silicon Valley. It means you can freely practice your religion, and that church is more essential than a casino. And it means that we judge people on their actions, not on their immutable characteristics. The American way of life is being dismantled by a group of bitter, deceitful, vengeful activists who have never built anything in their lives. They have us locking up pastors while releasing violent criminals from prison. We are kicking doctors off of social media, yet promoting Chinese state-funded propaganda on major tech platforms. This election is the most critical since 1860, when a man named Lincoln was elected to preserve the Union from disintegration. This election is not just the most important of our lifetime, it is the most important since the preservation of the Republic in 1865. By re-electing Trump, we will ensure that our kids are raised to love our country and respect its founding fathers, not taught to hate or be ashamed of them. We will build monuments to heroes, not burn down our cities. We will be a country that rises to higher heights, that dreams big, thinks big, and achieves the impossible. A country that values our remarkable journey, the complexities of our past, but clearly communicates to the next generation that we have to be grateful, not angry that we live in the United States. We will be a country that makes it easier to have many children, live quiet and peaceable lives, and worship your God without a tyrant getting in the way. We will be a country that has its best 100 years ahead. We will build a future where America remains the greatest country ever to exist in the history of the world. All of that is within our grasp if we secure 4 more years for the defender of Western civilization, our champion, my friend, the 45th President of the United States, President Donald J. Trump.
Okay, so during the Democratic convention, I didn't have to take that many notes because the speeches were generally anodyne and boring and usually insipid. I don't know this lady. Okay, so no, education reform advocate. What she's going to do is, I got a great idea. Let's tear down all the schools and make money off of it. I just summarized that speech. Okay, so first thing about Charlie Kirk's speech. Charlie Kirk gave it. There is no equivalent in the left wing. The Democrats, and this is to the credit of the Republicans and discredit of the Democrats. The Democrats would never allow a young progressive to give the opening speech of their convention. They wouldn't let a young progressive within a 3-state perimeter of their convention. Charlie Kirk, who's a nobody, just a tiny minor character in this soap opera, is given us a starring role here. Why? Because Republicans are trying to reach out to young people. Then they have almost no prayer of that. Most of the young are progressive, but at least they're trying. Whereas the Democrats, their idea of trying is, they go, why don't you guys vote for us? It's all your fault we lose elections. Listen to you. Of course we're not gonna listen to you. So that's the one and only upside of the Charlie Kirk speech. Now the rest of it was bathed in culture wars and honestly reeked of racism throughout. And so he said, we are going to protect good middle-class patriots in the suburbs from a vengeful mob seeking to destroy our way of life. That's not that coded. That's really pretty plain. I have so much more, but Jayar, jump in on that.
Okay, so I thought I was the only one that's gonna need to take notes here because first I didn't have the plan. I was like, as they speak, I remember what they said, but it comes in such a rapid succession that you're like, okay, wait a second, let me see. That last thing he said, oh man, he just hit me with another one. So the first thing is it's a lot of projection, talking about you want to get the focus off of the anger, the vitriol, the attacks, and the straight just bitterness that's happening from the Republican Party and what this entire convention looking like. I'm willing to be proven wrong, but what it's looking like it's going to be. So he mentioned bitter Democrats that are keeping conservatives from speaking their minds on social media because that's the basis for anything you can do in America. If you're not tweeting about it, and if you're not writing on Facebook, it's just your voice is just completely muted. Now, those things that you say on those platforms, no matter how hateful, divisive, racist, sexist, anything that you want to say, or maybe even inciting violence, which that also happens, all that's freedom of speech. All that's just fine in freedom of speech. And there should be no parameters or bases from the way that these social media companies pursue their users, or you should police their users to not destroy the platform. Let's keep it real. And if you don't like those platforms, create your own. I keep hearing about these conservatives that have an overwhelming number in America that everyone loves and that the American people want to be like. Go and start your social media company, have your chats, and then everyone will be there, right? Why do you need these other social media companies that are so beholden to the Democratic Party, number one? And number two, are overlording over you like slave owners, which of course you also celebrate, which leads to my second point. There's monuments, we need to be building monuments of our heroes, not burn down statues. Monuments of your heroes. Your heroes are slave owners, your heroes are traitors to the nation, your heroes are people that fought the United States of America in order to continue to own human beings while you claim Abraham Lincoln. None of it makes any sense. So we can go through the list of all the people of these statues that have been torn down, but you're gonna have to now latch your name and everything that you believe in on the beliefs and lives of those heroes of yours. If someone says their hero is Martin Luther King, They may say so, not really knowing everything about his life, but at least some of the anecdotal things that they've heard through a few speeches. Okay, it's okay. You don't have to know everything about someone to have a statement. But the small little tidbits, about the lives of Confederate generals and well-known slave owners. You either have to ignore those things that were very integral to their lives, or you have to accept those things and say you like those, and therefore they make heroes. You're making heroes out of them.
Yeah.
It never goes by the first step with conservatives when they talk about these things. They'll just throw out names, say that they're heroes, and there's no question of why is that person your hero? What is it he did that has you aspire to be like them? Because that's what a hero is. A hero is someone that you admire so much that you're like, I aspire to be somewhat like them in some form or fashion. What is it about traitors to the country and slave owners that make you aspire to be like them?
Yeah.
Never asked.
And Jayar, he says these social media people, they kicked off those poor doctors. Well, they don't clarify, like they didn't clarify the heroes they're talking about are slave owners and Confederate generals. They didn't clarify that the doctor that was kicked off thought that aliens used demon sperm to impregnate us. So I'm okay with the social media guys saying maybe the demon sperm folks aren't exactly accurate. And he talked about how Donald Trump is the bodyguard of Western civilization. Are you kidding me? He's a guy looking to destroy Western civilization. He doesn't even believe in democracy. He says, if I lose, I might not leave. It depends on the aftermath that he would create. The main reason I'm voting against Donald Trump, and there's 1,000 reasons and they're all incredibly compelling, but the main one is because I'm afraid he's going to tear down Western civilization, that we won't have elections anymore. And so he says, oh, he put his life of luxury on the line for us. Oh, please. The guy was about to go bankrupt for the 7th time. And they're so over the top. He said the Democrats would eliminate everything we love. How's that for a statement? Jesus Christ, man. So the Democrats don't hit the Republicans all week long. Republicans come out and immediately light the Democrats on fire. And so that's the difference between two parties. And he says, oh, and you get kicked off of social media by basically self-righteous censors. Donald Trump is in court right now suing so that he can block people on social media. There is no end to their hypocrisy. And so where's freedom of speech? Where's the censorship? You guys are the ones doing the censorship. You Department of Justice put together this gigantic thing to say that we should be able to censor people. Speaking of which, here's Matt Gaetz.
But we are a nation of full hearts and clear minds. We see the choice clearly: strength or weakness, energy or confusion, success or failure. President Trump is the first president since Reagan not to start a new war. Biden has foolishly cheerled decades of war without winning, without end. President Trump knows we are strongest when we fight hardest, not in distant deserts, but for our fellow Americans. We must fight to save America now, or we may lose her forever. Joe Biden might not even notice. Settle for Biden. That's the hashtag promoted by AOC and the socialists. The Woketopians will settle for Biden because they will make him an extra in a movie written, produced, and directed by others. It's a horror film, really. They'll disarm you, empty the prisons, lock you in your home, and invite MS-13 to live next door. And the police aren't coming when you call. In Democrat-run cities, they're already being defunded, disbanded. Blaming our best and allowing society's worst? That's the story they write in Hollywood. That's if the lights even stay on in California anymore. A state that cannot keep power running for its own people should not send its junior senator to be vice president. They used to write only in fiction, but nightmares are becoming real. Cops killed, children shot. At the Democrat convention, they say, if you vote against Trump, it will all stop. Appeasement is never a winning strategy. No, we won't settle for violence in our neighborhoods or at our border. We won't settle for decades of bad decisions by basement-dwelling Joe Biden. We settle a continent. We know that the frontier, the horizon, even the stars belong to us. Donald Trump, like all builders, is a visionary. That which is built in the mind is even more powerful than the brick and mortar that holds it together. First comes the mind, then the making. First comes the vision, then the work. Washington, Lincoln, and Jefferson are immortal precisely because of the pull they have on our imagination. You cannot cancel a culture that loves its heroes. The dangerous left need America to be weaker to accomplish their goal of replacing her. We know that to make America great again, we must first make something of ourselves. That is the meaning of true strength. My great-grandfather was a railroad man. As a Florida man, I watch our rockets routinely send the brightest beyond the heavens with our flag and our hope. America is the greatest country that has ever existed. Don't let any celebrity, athlete, or politician tell you otherwise. President Trump sometimes raises his voice and a ruckus. He knows that's what it takes to raise an army of patriots who love America and will protect her. We must win this election if we cherish our country as much as we should. For there is no place to run, no refuge for freedom should we fail. America is not just an idea or a constitution. It is our home. We must protect our home with unbreakable made in America strength. Strength I see every day in President Donald Trump. Thank you.
My name is Kim Klasik, and I'm running for Congress in Maryland.
Okay. So look, there's about 7 African Americans who are Republicans in the country. They found all 7.
Yeah, I'm very curious of what she's going to say, but so no, go ahead.
All right, go ahead. Then we'll watch Matt. We'll talk about Matt Gaetz.
Do you think Maryland taxpayers would be getting a whole lot since our taxes are out of control? Instead, we're paying for decades of incompetence and corruption. Sadly, the same cycle of decay exists in many of America's Democrat-run cities. And yet the Democrats still assume that black people will vote for them, no matter how much they let us down and take us for granted. We're sick of it. We're not going to take it anymore. The days of blindly supporting the Democrats are coming to an end. In Baltimore, we have the highest number of black Republicans in the entire country running for office this election cycle. Joe Biden believes we can't think for ourselves, that the color of someone's skin dictates their political views. We're not buying the lies anymore. You and your party have neglected us for far too long. We want safety in our neighborhoods. We want to make the most of the federal opportunity zone I'm standing in right now in West Baltimore. We want higher paying jobs and more business opportunities. We want lower taxes. We want school choice. We want a chance to get ahead, not just get by. That's what President Trump promised, and that's what President Trump delivered. I want Baltimore to be an example to Republicans around the country that we can compete in our inner cities if we reach out to the citizens and deliver real results. President Trump is bringing this country back roaring. He's bringing the American spirit to life for all Americans. So I'm asking you to help President Trump complete this great American comeback. And then I'm asking you to help me start this great Baltimore comeback. Thank you, and God bless America.
Good evening. I'm Ronna McDaniel, chairwoman of the Republican National Committee.
No, let's stay with her. Let's stay with her.
Thank you for tuning in as we kick off this historic convention. As we speak to you tonight, we send our thoughts and prayers to those facing terrible fires in California, recovering from storms in Iowa, and preparing for hurricanes in Louisiana and the Gulf Coast. Democrats started their convention last week with Eva Longoria, a famous Hollywood actress who played a housewife on TV. Well, I'm actually a real housewife and a mom from Michigan with 2 wonderful kids in public school who happens to be the only the second woman in 164 years to run the Republican Party. And unlike Joe Biden, President Trump didn't choose me because I'm a woman. He chose me because I was the best person for the job. 4 years ago, President Trump started a movement unlike any other. And over the next 4 days, we will hear from a few of the millions of hardworking, everyday Americans who have benefited from his leadership. If you watched the DNC last week, you probably noticed that Democrats spent a lot of time talking about how much they despise our president. But we heard very little about their actual policies. Policies that would have been unthinkable a decade ago. Policies like banning fossil fuels, eliminating private health insurance, taxpayer-funded health care for people who come here illegally, and defunding the police. Their argument for Joe Biden boiled down to the fact that they think he's a nice guy. Well, let me tell you, raising taxes on 82% of Americans is not nice. Eliminating 10 million good-paying oil and gas jobs is not nice. Policies that force jobs to flee our country or allow abortion up until the point of birth are not nice. The truth is, there's only one person who has empathized with everyday Americans and actually been fighting for them over the past 4 years, and that is President Donald Trump. In the nearly 4 years I've worked on behalf of President Trump, I've seen up close a man who has a deep love for family, a man who has reverence for the office of the presidency, a man with an incredible respect for law enforcement and our military. I've seen private moments where he comforts Americans in times of pain and sadness. Now, everyone knows he can be tough. He's tough when he takes on China, tough when he works to fix our unfair trade deals, tough when he fights to secure our borders. President Trump is always going to be tough when he is fighting for the American people, because nice guys like Joe cared more about countries like China and Iran than the United States of America. Tonight begins a new chapter in the great American story. A story that has inspired the world for generations. And when we re-elect President Trump this November, the best is yet to come. This election is the most important in our lifetime. Your vote counts more than ever. If you want to check your voting status, secure your ballot, or register to vote, text VOTE to 88022. Earlier today, President Trump and Vice President Pence came to North Carolina to thank our delegates for unanimously renominating them to a second term. Our official roll call and the business of our Republican convention was conducted today in Charlotte. We have created a short video to symbolize the excitement for President Trump across all 50 states and territories. Thank you for watching. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
The great state of Alabama.
All right, so they're doing a roll call. Oh, they're going so much faster than Democrats. They don't care at all. They're like, Guam, Alabama, Tennessee, Washington, we're done. Anyway, all right, I have so much to say about.
Yeah, my God.
I have so much to say about so many things that just happened. So first of all, Ronna McDaniel, the RNC chair, comes out and says, "I'm so proud to be only the second woman to lead the RNC in 164 years." I don't think that that's a thing you should brag about. Maybe on a personal level, sure, but it doesn't really speak well to the Republican Party. Okay, so then she says, "Oh, you know, these guys, they sound nice, but they actually want to do Medicare for all, where you would all get health care. Does that sound nice to you?" I was like, yeah, actually that does. That sounds amazing to me, right? But my main point there is all the cable news pundits told us, don't elect Bernie Sanders. If Bernie Sanders was the primary, they're gonna say that we're gonna turn socialist and that we're gonna do Medicare for all, take away people's private health insurance, defund the police. They just said all of that. Ronna McDaniel just said all of that. Even though we didn't pick Bernie Sanders, we picked the opposite. We picked Joe Biden. It doesn't matter. They're gonna call you leftist, socialist, etc., no matter what you do. So the next time you hear a cable news pundit tell you, oh, don't pick the person that you like, don't pick the policies that you like, because the Republicans will say X. Understand that these pundits have seen this 1,000 times over. They're lying to you on purpose, okay? Yeah. Then she said, oh, Don, this is my favorite moment. Donald Trump, I've seen him in person, and he has a deep love of family. Well, that, to be fair, is true. That's why he's had 3 of them. And in the midst of his last one, as his wife was delivering, he was working on possibly a 4th with a porn star, actually several porn stars. And that's how deeply committed he is to different families, and not just his own. And then she said, I've seen him comfort Americans. Really? Name one. Name one that he's comforted. The man has 0 empathy. There's no chance that he ever comforted anyone in a way that would resonate or that we've ever heard about.
Well, I'm waiting for the empathy for regular Americans, because she said that, I wrote down 3 instances. It is what it is when it comes to the number of hundreds of thousands, over 100,000. I think at the time it was probably 150,000. I'm trying to remember, because the number has been growing so much about the number of COVID deaths so far in America, that at the time when he said it is what it is to Axios' Jonathan Swan, everyone was taken aback a little bit. So the care for regular Americans extends to it is what it is. That doesn't sound like much care. Go back to work. We need to reopen everything despite the pandemic, despite the fact I've done nothing to address it or even get testing again at the time. Testing at a level where we can track things enough and actually do something where getting back to work and getting back to school and getting back to everything being open is actually a viable option here. And thirdly, talking about certain people, go back to where you came from. Let's not forget those lines, because those types of things, when he says, those are about empathizing with regular Americans. That's his idea of empathizing with regular Americans as they go through all the struggles that they're confronted with that have absolutely no assistance from our government, which we pay to help us with these things. Let's keep it real. The government is not here to help everyone else except for the majority of people who pay for it. It's to help everyone. In fact, it's not even a help. It's really there because we're supposed to tell you guys the way to run it based off of what's most effective for getting us to the next progressive place in the country. Instead, this president comes and does what he wants and tells people who disagree with him they're not real Americans. Go back where you came from. Who care? Risk your lives for my glory and my re-election period. And if you or a friend or a family member has died, it is what it is. Where's this empathy she's talking about? I still haven't found it.
It's almost a wink and a nod. They're almost, saying to their base. I mean, obviously, I'm kidding. The guy hasn't comforted anyone other than maybe billionaires. Are you guys okay? Is the stock market okay? Have we given you enough trillions of dollars? Right? So it's almost like a joke at this point. So now I want to go to Matt Gaetz. So Matt Gaetz gives a speech at the RNC, and upsides and downsides. Believe it or not, I thought there was upsides. So first of all, the Republicans love their base. So this is a base convention already. We've heard about 4 speeches, and all of them have been super hardcore base speeches. Oh, the mobs are coming for you. They're gonna rip your middle class patriot families apart, right? And so, and Matt Gaetz was similar, and he told and I mean, okay, now this is not the upside, okay, but this is the downside. He said, they're gonna empty the prisons, and their MS-13 is gonna, be your neighbor. Oh, come on, man! How many times have you said these insane, over-the-top things? How many Republican conventions have they said this at? And it still works. But to their credit, they actually care about their base, and they think having them turn out to vote is important, and that is why their voter turnout is much, much higher than the Democrats' voter turnout. Consistently across elections and across time, right? Whereas the Democratic convention, they'd rather spit on their base than have them speak, let alone try to appeal to their own base. I mean, the idea that it'd be like, we're gonna get healthcare for everyone. We're gonna increase wages, no matter who you are. Nope. Almost no policy and no appeal to the base. The Republicans' version of appealing to the base is based on rhetoric and policy, as hateful as it is, but it is, okay? Whereas the Democrats' idea of appealing to their base is purely demographic. I've put up African-American folks, Latino folks, Asian folks, etc. My job is done. They shouldn't talk about policy or rhetoric at all. So the part that I again thought was both good and an embarrassment to the DNC was when he said that Donald Trump hasn't started any new wars in the Middle East. Now, there's a ton of nuance to that. Donald Trump has continued a lot of our conflict, as we explain every day on the Young Turks, and has actually made some of those conflicts far worse, like Iran, and made the Middle East even more dangerous. But at least Here's a diehard right-winger at the Republican convention giving an anti-war speech. We didn't hear a single anti-war speech at the DNC. That's unbelievable. Unbelievable. So now the Republicans instantly out of the gate have more anti-war speeches than the Democrats did. And instead we had John Kerry come out there and go, America's exceptional, and when Trump's out of the way, we're gonna prove it again all across the world. It's like, that is not at all comforting.
Well, this I hear you on that, and I'm coming from, like, I know a few things I've said are coming from direct criticism for what's been going on, but I go into each of these looking for what the appeal may be. Like, my mind is made up because I go through this every day and I know where they stand for, and I've seen what this president has done very, very intricately. So I'm trying to take a step back. So also when it was Kim, I apologize for mispronouncing your name, Klatchik, the black woman that's running for Congress, and she's from Baltimore. I was looking for some openings for what she would say that would appeal to black voters, because I get it. You have to hit the demographics, you have to hit the people that you're not getting many votes from for obvious reasons. And I was just looking for this appeal. Maybe this happens more with her direct campaign. It sounds like they gave her as many minutes as the Democrats gave AOC to speak. So it's hard to jam it all in one thing. So she was basically there as the face and the black person to say, you don't have to vote Democrat just because you're black. That was her message, and that's, I believe, what she was told to say. Hopefully in her approaches to what she does in her campaign, she has details of why things need to change and how she's gonna change them, and the reasons why previous politicians, Democrat and Republican, did nothing for people in the city that she's from or the state that she's from. So I hope she has that on the agenda rather than saying the same thing that the rest of the Republicans say. Tax cuts, hey, they're using you, slave, plantation. That's what black candidates say as Republicans. Just keep it real. So I'm looking for something to glom onto, and I'm struggling to still find it. Again, I'm trying to take that step back.
No. So she said two things that were totally nonsensical. She said, "Can you believe the failures of Maryland in this time?" Well, Maryland has a Republican governor, and these times are Donald Trump's administration. So, okay, what did you prove? That doesn't make any sense if you're trying to make an argument on behalf of the Republican Party. Then she turned around and said, look at the wonderful things that Donald Trump did in Baltimore. What? Donald Trump didn't do anything in Baltimore except attack Baltimore and say all sorts of terrible things about it. And Baltimore is run by a Democratic mayor. I don't get it. Make up your mind, or at least try to make some sort of sense. The Democrats have done a wonderful job in Baltimore, and the Republicans have done a horrible job in Maryland and in the country. It doesn't have to make sense. There's, like I said right before, as she was coming on, there's 7 black folks in this country who are Republican. They're all at this convention. They will all have speaking slots, and they'll all say totally nonsensical things, because in reality, Donald Trump has done almost nothing for black folks in this country and is deeply racist. I say almost because I think the criminal justice reform was good legislation, and yes, it affects everyone, but certainly African American leaders and activists were calling for it. We're fair on this show. Back to Matt Gaetz for one more second.
Yeah.
So when he came up and started talking, the terrible part of his speech is like, obvious racial undertones, and MS-13 is going to move in next to you, and the inner city mobs are coming for you, etc. And then the second half that was absurd was he's like, and remember, everything belongs to us. The frontier and even the stars belong to us. Wait, why? I don't know. Am I not a patriot if I question whether the Orion's belt is actually American property? I mean, this is absurd, right? The stars are ours, and our Space Force will start Star Wars if you mess with us. But this is the absurdity of the Republican convention. And then, of course, nonstop insults of Democrats, including what Matt Gaetz says was woke-topians. I don't think that one resonates. That was a little funky.
I think you're trying to get it to stick. I'm trying to figure out, okay, so what do they do? Because here's the thing, if they hit us with policy, which I'd love to hear their policy. And we know what half the policy normally is pump more money to the military, more tax cuts, I'm trying to think of a third. I mean, I'm trying to get a good third normal Republican railing of their agenda, but those are the two main ones. More military, and guns. So those are your three main veins of what many Republicans say. So how do you get that? How do you regenerate that to have some kind of a policy position? Because we already know that the RNC platform has not been changed since 2016 because they followed Donald Trump's lead and were unprepared, didn't modify what they're saying, didn't give us a vision of what they want to do in the second term. So they kind of have nothing to really glom onto except for anger, disdain, and shooting down at Democrats. Yes, that happens at the Democrat convention, so I understand that. Democrats do talk about Republicans and how bad they are at governing and what they've been doing and did it for a week. But at least there's evidence we're looking at right behind it. So when someone says Donald Trump caged children or Donald Trump dropped the ball on the pandemic, Donald Trump continues to not take it seriously, those things we've been watching happening. So when you say the caravan is coming from Central America and Mexico, when you say they're going to empty the prisons, let the criminals out, come and kill you at your front door, no one has seen these things. So it has to be this fantasy land of Armageddon that Democrats are riding on the top of the fiery waves of and are laughing as it burns you. That just isn't reality. It's a cartoon. And you're getting people to vote for you based off of cartoons instead of the reality that's happening. And last thing, this is more Matt Gaetz. He said the junior senator was picked to be the vice president candidate. I'm getting flashbacks of when Obama was running for president, and all they could do was talk about how he's this freshman senator or he's this young guy, inexperienced, doesn't know anything that he's doing. There's this guy in the White House right now who has far less experience than anyone that they could ever talk about, but they only talk about the lack of experience when it comes to a person of color. Let's keep it real. So black folks that have catapulted themselves through the political echelon of positions here, now they're unqualified. They're this junior senator that you just threw in here just because she's a black woman. What are you there for? What is the president in position there for? What did you guys say about him when he was running for president in 2015 and he was completely inexperienced? All of his skeletons were dropping out of the closet. You said he's inexperienced. You said he's wild. You say he swings crazy. That he's brutish. That he's a bully. They said all these things about him. Suddenly he's the second coming of Jesus that he doesn't believe in. So they need to keep some semblance, I think, of a message in place, but it just doesn't matter. So as we watch it and we have these criticisms, the people that they're speaking to don't have these criticisms because they just don't care. So I mean, obviously we're not the audience because
So Jayar, I want to address those 2 points. Number one, yes, there's no new RNC platform. The Republican Party gave up on writing a platform. If you think about it, it's super logical because if whatever Donald Trump's ideas are today, he'll change them tomorrow. And then the next day, what's the point of writing down anything? Okay, it just depends on whatever jumps into Donald Trump's head. He's changed his own policies back and forth an overwhelming number of times. Of course there is no policy. The only policy is we bow down to Trump. We love authoritarian rule. Now, secondly, the most important point you're making, Jayar, and probably the thing that'll decide the election is when Republican base saw the George Floyd protests, they saw some looting because local news loves loot porn and riot porn, right? And so they show that on a loop. They take 1 or 2 instances from any city and just replay it 1,000 times and drill it into people's heads. When Republican voters see that, they go, panic, panic. It's black people, they're coming. I knew it, and they're gonna burn down my house. Okay, it doesn't matter how unrealistic. It doesn't matter that their house never got burnt down. It doesn't matter that nobody ever came to their neighborhood. Facts don't matter at all. The only thing that matters is fear, because that's the number one thing that triggers Republicans, fear. Once you get aroused that fear, you got them forever and ever and ever. They'll give their banana to the alpha monkey every time, okay? So, but in these protests, they were not just leftists or African Americans or minorities. These protests were very, overall, enormously peaceful. Yes, there was some percentage of burning and looting, but it was tiny, especially compared not only to the overall protest, but to past civil unrest, okay? So now, and it was broad-based. It was what white folks came and joined, moms joined, veterans joined, babies joined. And in fact, Donald Trump's popularity on the protest was about 1/3 to 2/3, very negative on that. At times even more negative than how he has handled coronavirus. So the Republicans should be wrong about their thesis on who the majority in this country is. If the majority actually comes out and votes, Donald Trump, on his argument alone, that Matt Gaetz argument of the protests are terrible, we should crack their skulls and make sure they don't get anywhere near you. And that's Donald Trump's argument, without a doubt. Obviously, as you saw, tear gassing the protesters to do the photo op of the Bible. If he, based on that thesis, based on the polling, he should get wiped out. It should be an epic landslide. And in fact, that's why even as big as Biden's lead is today, I can't believe that it's not bigger. It should be double digits in all the swing states. And because I think the Republicans are wrong. That's not this country. It's been this country for a long time, but I think that number went from about 40% of the country in 2016 was just razor thin enough to win, to now about 35% of the country, and that is not anywhere near enough to win. It should cause a landslide. But I don't know, either something weird's gonna happen, or you never know. The Democrats could lose any election at any time. Don't put it past them to lose this election. But they should get wiped out on the Republican idea, let alone the Democratic ideas.
It's a matter of the Democrats taking full control. We talked about Rahm Emanuel today, and he was on a morning show giving his assessment of what he believes Biden should do to continue to make these never Trumpers or these former Trump Republicans permanent Biden. He called them Biden Republicans, I believe. Just like, I think it was like Reagan Republicans or something along those lines.
Yeah, like Reagan Democrats, yeah.
Yeah, Reagan Democrats, I'm sorry. The back and forth is confusing. So he had this assessment for the way it should work, but all of it was continuing to appeal to these Republicans that are now primed and ready to jump ship. And then when he brings up these progressive wing of the party, it's, oh yeah, go ahead, yeah, we know we got them on board because of a few things that we assume they believe us about. But then once the Biden administration gets started, it's time to drop all those things. So when you say blatantly and openly like that, things that progressives already know, or at least many of the angry ones are assuming is part of your plan, it doesn't help to bring about that last group. So I think maybe a little bit of the thing that Republicans are still holding on to with their numbers is that the progressives are sick of being, honestly, strung along for the ride and not even hiding it anymore. So not that Biden is saying it, but the people around him are. I mean, Hillary Clinton was doing it. Biden is trying to hide it a little bit, but the fact that his actions don't really show it that much. There's this chance for the landslide to happen. It's just checking that last box. Give some more of these types of policies that will actually get people on board. Why do we see it as an opportunity to get more Republicans? They're already upset with Donald Trump. Now what you do, now that you got the Colin Powell speaking at your event, that you got the John Kasich speaking at your event, what you then say is, this is what Democrats are. We got that moderate view, because I don't want to overlook the moderates because they exist too. That actually always frustrates me when progressives too much just shove aside moderates as if they don't exist. We don't have to agree with everything they think, but they're humans and they're Americans and they exist and they still vote. So if you want to have a big tent party, you got the moderates because you got the moderate candidate. So the only thing left are those progressives. If you toss those types of policies at progressives, not just because they're there and you have to convince them enough, but give them things that they need that aren't crazy. They're just not crazy. You give them that part, make the Colin Powells decide, make the John Kasich's decide. I really hate Trump, but these policies that will help American people, do I hate that more than I hate what Trump has done to my party? Why are we putting the pressure on them to do something? You're in a position of power. You're in a position where you have the lead. A pretty decent lead is what it looks like. And you're still afraid. What team that's up by 27 in the fourth quarter is still afraid? You don't stop playing, you continue the same thing that got you the lead. Now, in this case, the lead is just you have an incompetent opponent. So if you go ahead and put that last bit of strategy on them and actually include the numbers that will get you that kind of landslide, it's just too easy. But Rahm Emanuel, as badass as he is, as much as he says he's gonna get those guys, He's still afraid of Republicans. He's still afraid of Republicans.
So, Jayar, two things. One, I know the team that's up by 27 is still afraid. The Atlanta Falcons in the Super Bowl. Speaking of which, here's Herschel Walker. I'll finish the thought later. Let's listen to Herschel.
I've known Donald Trump for 37 years. And I don't mean just casual ran into him from time to time. I'm talking about a deep personal friendship. I watched him as an owner of a professional football team. Right after he bought the team, he set out to learn. He learned about the history of the team, the players, the coaches, every detail. Then he used what he learned to make the team better. I watched him in the boardroom. He can be in the middle of a big meeting, but if one of the kids was on the phone, he dropped everything to take the call. He taught me that the family should be your top priority. I watched him treat janitors, security guards, and waiters the same way he would treat a VIP. He made them feel special because he knew they were. He understands that they are the people who make this country run. They clean, they cook, they build, they drive, they deliver. He told me, Herschel, make an effort to get to know people. Remember their names. That stuck with me. One time, I planned to take his kids to Disney World with my family. At the last minute, Donald said he'd like to join us. So there he was, in a business suit, on It's a Small World ride. That was something to see. It just shows you what a caring, loving father he is. It hurt my soul to hear the terrible names that people call Donald. The worst one is racist. I take it as a personal insult that people would think I've had a 37-year friendship with a racist. People who think that don't know what they're talking about. Growing up in the Deep South, I've seen racism up close. I know what it is, and it isn't Donald Trump. Just because someone loves and respects the flag, our national anthem, and our country, doesn't mean they don't care about social justice. I care about all those things. So does Donald Trump. He shows how much he cares about social justice in the black community through his actions. And his action speaks louder than stickers or slogans on a jersey. He keeps right on fighting to improve the lives of black Americans and all Americans. He worked night and day. He never stopped. He leaves nothing on the field. Some people don't like his style, the way he knocks down obstacles that get in the way of his goal. People on the opposing team didn't like when I ran over them either. But that's how you get the job done. I pray every night that God gives him more time. Give him 4 more years. He has accomplished so much almost all by himself on a constant attack. But there's still more work to be done. If you love America and want to make it better, Donald Trump is your president. He's my president, and I'm blessed to call him friend.
Good evening. I'm Natalie Harp, a formerly forgotten American from California. In the classic Jimmy Stewart film, It's a Wonderful Life, George Bailey is given a great gift, the chance to see what the world would be like without him. Tonight, Mr. President, we'd like to give you that same gift, because without you, we'd all be living in Pottersville, sold out to a crooked Mr., or I should say, a crooked Mrs. Potter, with no hope of escape except death itself. I should know, because I wouldn't be alive today if it wasn't for you. About 5 years ago, I was the victim of a notoriously deadly medical error. I survived, but only to be diagnosed with a rare and terminal bone cancer. You know, the Democrats love to talk about healthcare being a human right. But a right to what? Well, I'll tell you. To them, it's a right to marijuana, opioids, and the right to die with dignity, a politically correct way of saying assisted suicide. I was told I was a burden to my family and to my country, and that by choosing to die early, I'd actually be saving the lives of others by preserving resources for them, rather than wasting them on a lost cause like myself. And when I failed the chemotherapies that were on the market, no one wanted me in their clinical trials. I'd make them look bad. They didn't give me the right to try experimental treatments, Mr. President. You did. And without you, I'd have died waiting for them to be approved. Now with the coronavirus, everyone knows what that feels like to be waiting for a cure. But we've only been waiting a few months. Just imagine what 2020 would have looked like, fighting for your life, without Donald Trump fighting for it too. In January, there would have been no China travel ban. Millions would have died. Millions more would have been infected, for there'd be no record levels of testing, no right to try treatments, no fast track for a vaccine, nor Operation Warp Speed ready to deliver it. And without Donald Trump as our patient advocate for the past 4 years, well, the opioid epidemic would have stolen even more lives from even more families. Kidney patients would have no future except dying on wait lists, for there'd be no initiative to increase donations. There'd still be no accountability at the VA, and our brave veterans would still be suffering long wait times with no choice nor access to faster care. Insulin and other drug prices would have continued to rise, while a record number of generic drugs would still be stuck in the pipeline. There'd be no price transparency. We wouldn't have health plans up to 60% cheaper than Obamacare, and we'd still be stuck with that infamous individual mandate. And God forbid what the next 4 years would look like. For in Joe Biden's America, China would control our drug production. We'd be one step closer to government-run health care. We wouldn't just be unable to keep our doctors. We'd be lucky if we could see any doctor. And even then, some of us would be denied care. For in socialized medicine, you don't beat the odds, you become the odds. And I would lose my right to try, just like Charlie Gard, that terminally ill British baby whose government-run healthcare system decided it was too expensive and too cruel to keep him alive. You see, Mr. President, you've done so much more than your promises made and promises kept. For numbers only tell part of the story. We are the rest of it. Facts with faces of Americans who would still be forgotten if you and our favorite First Lady hadn't given up your own wonderful life so we could have the chance at one. George Bailey's father was right. All you can take with you is that which you've given away. And Mr. President, that makes you the richest man in the world, for you have used your strength to make America strong again. Sacrificed the life you built to make America proud again. And you risked everything to make America safe again. It's a wonderful life. You made America great again. And on November 3rd, we are going to keep America great.
America. My name is Vernon Jones, and I'm a state representative from the great state of Georgia. As you can see, I'm a man of color, and I'm a lifelong Democrat, too. You may be wondering, why is a lifelong Democrat speaking at the Republican National Convention? And that's a fair question, and here's your answer. The Democratic Party does not want black people to leave their mental plantation. We've been forced to be there for decades and generations. But I have news for Joe Biden. We are free. We are free people with free minds. And I'm part of a large and growing segment of the black community who are independent thinkers, and we believe that Donald Trump is the president that America needs to lead us forward. This is no time for sleeping in the basement. Joe Biden has had 47 years to produce results. But he's been all talk and no action, just like so many of the Democrats who've been making promises to the black voters for decades. We've been their captive audience. When President Trump sought to earn the black vote, the Democratic Party leaders went crazy. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer literally started wearing kente cloths around the U.S. Capitol, as if pandering were enough to keep us satisfied. Let me tell you why I'm supporting our president. I grew up in the South, in Laurel Hill, North Carolina, Scotland County, the Green Pond community to be exact. My parents, Robin and Rufer Jones, built with their own hands a 4-room cinder block home with no indoor plumbing. They had very limited education, But they instilled in us a strong work ethic that drove me from those tobacco fields of North Carolina to those hallowed halls of the Georgia General Assembly. My parents taught me if I believed in God, worked hard, and treated every person fairly, there was no limit to what we could achieve. I attended North Carolina Central University, an historical black college. For generations, HBCUs have been the incubators that develop black scholars in math and science and religion, engineering, and politics. They have been important springboards for the black success. But Democrats haven't treated them that way. When President Trump took office, he changed everything. He delivered historic funding to HBCUs, and he guaranteed it for 10 years, something that's never happened in the history of this country. That gave our HBCUs stability, the chance to grow, and produce the next generation of black leaders. That's right, Donald Trump did that. He's also supported school choice to ensure that no child, no matter their race or zip code, is left behind. Every child should have access to a quality education. But education is just the beginning. The president also built the most inclusive economy ever, with record low unemployment for African Americans and record high participation in the workforce. He put opportunity zones in the Trump tax bill that would drive investment into our communities for decades to come. He put the interests of American workers, and especially black workers, first. That's right, Donald Trump did that. He delivered historic criminal justice reform. He ended once and for all the policy of incarceration of black people, which has decimated our communities, caused by no other than Joe Biden. Democrats wouldn't do it. Obama didn't want to do it. And Joe Biden and Kamala Harris definitely wouldn't do it. But Donald Trump did it. He's also working every day to make our communities safer. As a former executive of DeKalb County, Georgia, I directed one of the largest public safety departments in the Southeast. I've seen tragic shootings on both sides. Officers killing citizens and citizens killing officers in the line of duty. Police officers are our fellow citizens. They live in our country. They have families too. They live in our communities. Unfortunately, Democrats have turned their backs on our brave police officers. They call it defunding. And it's a danger to our cities, our neighborhoods, and our children. Isn't it ironic that Democrat politicians have personal security to protect them? So why don't they forego their security and replace them with social workers, especially since that's what they want for you and me? Our police need more funding, not less. For frequent psychological examinations, for non-lethal remote restraint technology, and for more de-escalation and use of force training. These are the common sense solutions that President Trump supports. True, sincere police reform. That's right. Donald Trump did that too. Education, jobs, safety, security, on issue after issue. And in just a single term, he destroyed these negative forces that have victimized the black community for decades. He gave us the opportunity to rise. Now, you know, when I made the public announcement of my support for President Trump, all hell broke loose. I was threatened, called an embarrassment, and asked to resign by my own party. Unfortunately, that's consistent with the Democratic Party and how they view independent thinking black men and women. But I'm here to tell you that black voices are becoming more woke and louder than ever. The Democratic Party has become infected with a pandemic of intolerance, bigotry, socialism, anti-law enforcement bias, and a dangerous tolerance for people who attack others, destroy their property, and terrorize our own communities. That's what this election is all about. And that's why right now, more than ever before, America needs Donald Trump in the Oval Office for another 4 years. God bless you, and vote Donald J. Trump. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk, and I'll see you soon.